Girls, here we are. Cool minute.
Oh yeah, we're linking up today. We are linked up today. Thanks for calling. Thanks for being with us. Whether you are listening to us on Facebook, I know we only been doing this for a while, right? Okay, so whether you're listening to us on Roku, whether you're listening to us on Amazon, whether you're listening on iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, however you're listening, we appreciate you for tuning into We Got Issues 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. It is Fierce Friday, and this is Facts Friday too, because we're going to be breaking it down and talking about some facts. It is your girl, Caterina Harris Earl. I'm a part of the Force of Friendship, and our girl, Sabrina Goodwin Monday, is taking care of business. She is not on the show today, so she gets an absent for today, but it's an excused absence. We are keeping track. And I have my girl, Lady Crisette Ellis, who is in Detroit, Michigan, and Gloria Mayfield Banks, who is from the D, but all up in Ellicott City, Maryland. And I am sitting here living between Chicago and sitting today in Brentwood, California. We have a show for you today. I'm telling you, today I had a show all put together. It was going to be Good News Friday, and I had put together all kinds of good news that has happened in the Black community, particularly good news that has happened with my friend, my girlfriend, talking about a miracle. I'll talk more about it, but we have prayed for her as she has been in the hospital going on a month battling COVID-19. And when I tell you she is off the ventilator, not sedated anymore, about to get up, she is in physical therapy. I mean, she is
wow,
and that is a show in and of itself. I'm going to talk about it, but I'll just tell you, in light, part of doing this radio show every day, Monday through Friday, is we are in tune. You can count on the girlfriends to be in tune with what is happening. And I said just the other day, I bet this verdict is coming on a Friday, and it did. So today we are talking about the verdict, as well as the other cases we are watching. The not guilty verdict that just happened today of Kyle Rittenhouse. And this has been going on since the incident, August 25th, 2020. I pulled all kinds of research. Y'all. I was going to do the best I could, but my husband, Anthony Earl, came to the rescue today.
We love Anthony,
brother. I was like, please call him, please call him. So we have an attorney in the house who will not be with us the entire show, but 2/3 of the show. We're so excited. So pass it to the girlfriends real quick, and then we'll bring our guest in, Lady Crisette Ellis. How is it? Is the weather changing? Do you see some precipitation?
Let me tell you something. Yeah, we've already had that. We've already had some white stuff. Of course, the weather is still a little bit too warm for it to stick, but it's a beautiful fall day. The crispness is in the air. But yeah, it's a beautiful day. But you know what? I am not going to spend a whole lot of time because I'm so excited about our guests. But what I will say is CNN is going to be doing a special show called The Hunt for Planet B. And they are spending, you guys, hundreds of billions of dollars. NASA, they are creating this telescope to travel 1 million miles to search for life on other planets. And I'm telling you, with all of the stuff that's going on Earth, I'm ready for Planet B. Sign me up. When I tell you, remember I said I wasn't getting on that on the plane or whatever it was. I'm getting on it. Sign me up for Planet B. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
You ready? You ready?
Now
you ready?
that is funny. Now that is funny.
Yes. We thought you were the last one. How are you, Gloria? Looking bright and yellow. We all needed to wear some bright colors today because I'm telling you, we got issues.
For real,
we got issues.
Real. We got it. Ooh, talk about we got issues. But I'm like with Chris. I'm like, okay, 1 million miles away, maybe 2 million, because this stuff is crazy. I'm very excited about our topic, so I'm not going to take any other time. I'm just wanting to say I'm so glad y'all joined us on this Friday. I'm so glad you shared this with your friends. I'm so glad you're finding so much power and intense information in our We Got Issues from the Force of Friendship. So Caterina, Go ahead and do your thing as the host today.
I just want to say Anthony is messy.
Anthony, he's messy in the chat. He's messy. If you are on the radio, Anthony Earl, my husband said, Chris ain't going nowhere because she loves to shop. Okay. And I believe your husband, who was with the Ahmaud Arbery family, we hope that Bishop Ellis can call in and he will give an affirmative. So that you'll be two to, So I'm excited to bring our guest in. Dorothy is going to bring our guest in, my husband's fraternity brother, a dear friend. I'm looking forward to meeting him when we are on our way to the Holy Land. We get to come through New York in February. And so, believe it or not, this is my first time meeting attorney and Pastor Paul Martin.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. I love the energy. I love the energy. We needed to heat it up, but I got to tell you, New York City's a little cold too and crisp. So I appreciate all the energy you're bringing.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Honestly, in answer to a prayer, I said, Lord, I got to shift this topic, but help me, help a sister out. And so I appreciate you coming on. 30 years ago, a prosecutor for 5 years and practicing criminal defense attorney for the past 25 years. The first thing we want you to do, Pastor Paul Martin, Attorney Paul Martin, is introduce yourself. We always have our guests kind of brag on themselves. Tell the We Got Issues audience who you are and what makes you super bad.
Tell us everything. Tell us all of it.
University, the oldest private Black institution in America. After that, I attended St. John's University Law School under a United Negro College Fund scholarship. After law school, I was a prosecutor in the Bronx District Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted a variety of crimes from assault, guns, and homicides and drug cases. I left the prosecutor's office in 1995, and I've been doing criminal defense work, primarily doing violent crimes, homicides, police cases, a variety of cases. So my practice somewhat varies in the nature of the criminal cases that I handle. And then the other side of my life, God called me to preach the gospel. And so I'm also pastoring a church in East Orange, New Jersey. The name of my church is St. Mark's AME Church. And so I have a full plate, and that's the reason why I can't be with you. I have a revival tonight at 7:00. So I have to cut it a little short, but after I'd like to spend as much time as possible talking about the issues of the day.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're not going to waste any time. And it's just so amazing. I want to know, speaking for the girlfriends, I know I can. When the verdict came down, I was shocked. I was in a meeting. I saw it pop up on my iPad. My heart leaped. My heart sank. I was shocked. I was angry. It began to feel like George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, everything started coming up. I did watch much of the case, and I'm not quite sure that maybe the jury did what they were supposed to do because the laws didn't work in their favor. We want you to help us understand. And then, after we'll also talk about how we deal with all these emotions. I just feel unequivocally, if it was if he was Black, it would have gone down differently, regardless of with the same law, the same everything. So, Attorney Paul Martin, can you break it down?
I understand your frustration. I understand your frustration in that we know that historically in this country that in the event if it was a Black or a person of color, the criminal justice system just does not work equally. And so that I understand your frustration. But from a legal point of view, and from an attorney that has been both a prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, when I saw the case and watched the witnesses and heard the testimony, I was not surprised at all at the actual result of what actually took place. In fact, I was surprised that it took as long as it did for them to reach the verdict that they did reach. I do agree with something you said. I think based upon the laws as written in the state of Wisconsin and the facts as we understand them, that the jurors were somewhat forced to render a decision of not guilty. And you got to remember, not guilty means that the prosecutor could not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. It does not mean a person is innocent. So and there is a distinction, but the prosecutor was not able to overcome their burden in this situation. And it was obvious to me that they would be unable to do so based upon the facts as I understood them to be.
And was that because the prosecutor didn't do a good job, or is it that the laws just didn't work in the favor of the guilty verdict?
I think it's a combination of them both. I don't think the prosecutor really put forth the case that a seasoned, trained, prepared prosecutor would put forth. So I think that had a factor as it relates to the outcome. But more importantly, you have to understand the law of self-defense, and specifically the law of self-defense in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
The law of self-defense in Wisconsin is that the prosecution must disprove beyond a reasonable doubt that the individual was not defending themselves. A person has the right to use deadly physical force when they believe that deadly physical force is being used upon them. And when the prosecution's witness testified that he was shot, not when his hands were raised, but when he pointed his own firearm at the defendant. Now, this is the prosecution's witness, not the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Once he said, I pointed the gun at him, he had every right to use self-defense as it relates to the person with the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So he's authorized to use deadly physical force once someone is using deadly physical force at them. And so already the prosecution has basically put reasonable doubt in the case on their case in chief.
Mm.
So I wasn't
Attorney
surprised.
Martin, can I
Yes.
ask a quick question before we go to break? How was the prosecuting attorney selected? Did the family select them? Because I know when the other side, not the defendant, but who selects the prosecuting attorney? How did this company get selected?
Sure. In every county, whether it's Wayne County in Michigan or New York
Right.
County in New York City, every county has a prosecutor's office. Every county. They represent the state in whichever you live. And the prosecutors are typically called the district attorneys. They are elected officials. So you'll have a head district attorney for Wayne County, and then they hire a number of assistant district attorneys that prosecute cases. And typically, for a case of this magnitude, you would put on the case your brightest and your best. And it just did not appear to me that the prosecutors in this case were the best that they had to offer. There were so many issues I had with the way they prosecuted the case. One of the keys of being a litigation attorney or to being a trial lawyer is the questions, the answers for the questions that you ask. And they asked numerous questions, which they either knew the answer was going to be pro-defense or they weren't sure what the answer was going to be, and it came back to burn them. And so that was one of the problems that I had with the way they prosecuted the case. I don't think they were very well prepared. And there's nothing wrong with prosecutors speaking to your witnesses. Defense attorneys speak to their witnesses. That's appropriate. There's nothing wrong with that. And I started to think,
Attorney Paul, we're going
not-
to a break. We're going to our
Go ahead.
first break. We're going to our first break. We definitely want to get into what was the judge, what was the judge's part, and talking about the jury. More than 40% of Americans are people of color, but nearly every single elected prosecutor in America today is white. Let's talk about it all when we come back. We'll be at a 3-minute commercial break, and we're going to go to our caller, Harry, who's on the line. Thanks for listening in. Stay tuned.
Wow.
Okay, we are back. We are back. We are back. Thanks for listening into We Got Issues. We have 2 callers. We're going to go to our 2 callers and then get right back to our guest, Attorney Paul Martin. Harry, are you there? Thanks for calling in to We Got Issues.
Yeah, hey. I'm enjoying the show. Thank you for taking my call. It was for the last week or so, people that have been watching the trial have pretty much even been wondering why they brought charges. Because after the moment that your guest just mentioned, where a survivor said he pointed his gun at Rittenhouse before Rittenhouse shot him, everybody just knew that was it. That was self-defense. And there was a couple moments, and I wanted to challenge your guest on his assertion that the prosecutor was the best and brightest they had to offer. I know a lot of.
He wasn't. He said he believes that they did not put forth their best.
He was an assistant district attorney or something. I don't know if that's a political position or whatever, but usually well, my point is, even a damn fool has heard of the Miranda rights, Miranda law. Why? This is a question to your guest. How could that prosecutor be so stupid to say in front of the jury that Kyle Rittenhouse Miranda? That's a it's a mistrial type of thing to say that in front of the jury. Why was the prosecutor so stupid that they did that? And why do you think charges were even filed if he knew everything that came out in the trial? Like it was legal. Rittenhouse had the gun completely legally to carry a long rifle at the age of 17. It was completely legal for him to have the gun, and all the other stuff that came out. So the 2 questions: why hadn't the prosecutor heard of Miranda, and why did he do charges if he had all this information months ago?
Okay. He did say that he definitely believed there were several mistakes that were made. Can you respond to that?
Sure.
If you think you can push the limit in order to, get the response that you want from a witness, then you'll do such. Just so that your viewers and listeners know, a prosecutor cannot use a person's post-arrest silence to give an indication of guilt. Meaning, you would think when you get arrested, if someone arrests you and you did not do it, you would say, listen, I did not do it. I was over here, or I did that. Well, no, the law says that if the burden is on the prosecutor to prove the case, you don't have to disprove that you did not do it, and nor do you have to tell them once you're arrested anything about it. And it's improper to use your post-arrest silence as evidence of guilt. And that's what the prosecutor tried to do. I do agree with your caller. He should have known. He tried to push the envelope, and the judge was not having it.
Okay, when you say push the envelope, it was a violation of his constitutional rights to mention that in front of the jury. This isn't anything like he tried to fight around the edges. He violated Rittenhouse's rights, constitutional rights.
That issue was never decided because the judge never ruled on the motion.
Interesting. I want to ask before we go to our next caller. Thank you, Harry, for calling in and expressing your
feeling and your concern, a strong concern. We appreciate you. I'm going to go to our next caller and then come back and ask my question about that. Karen, are you there? Thank you for leaning into this conversation.
So I want to, give a little different view because that's what I always do. This is what I don't understand. And Mr. Martin, with all due respect to your profession, because I'm not an attorney, but what about the points that the DA did drive home? For me, the number one thing was after the first shooting, the guy left, went running, and at that point, to me, it was obvious he was going to get into another confrontation because he left the guy that he just shot. I'm sure if he would have put his gun down maybe and said, hey, I'm sorry he was coming at me, but how come we can't get past the first guy he killed? We're jumping to the other guy that pointed a gun at him, but what about the first guy? And then what about the fact that he he wasn't even supposed to be able to buy a gun like this. I wish I was in the jury room, because what is fundamentally wrong with our system is we're still working on old laws, we're still working on old rules. And I know, Mr. Mark, you're going to say it's the best system we have and we got to follow it. But following the system that we have does not work. Because if I was in the jury room, I would have said, let some common sense come into play. This kid is guilty, period. His whole disposition was wrong. First, he was acting like he was a medic. Then he was acting like he was a fireman. Then he was acting like these different things, and they proved that he didn't have any credentials. Why are we not addressing that? And I can't understand the jury gets past that unless it was just a white thing. Like, it didn't matter. These jurors were not going to find him guilty. That's the real story here. The prosecutor being bad, or he made a couple of mistakes, has nothing to do with this guy being totally guilty, and he walked away with murder. That's it. It's really simple.
So in response to some of those questions, a juror's job is to apply the facts to the law as the law is given to them. And once a juror says that I'm not going to follow the law, then they're not fulfilling their duty as jurors. And so the question that the jurors were to decide was not whether he lied about being a medic. Whether he told the truth about that or not is irrelevant to the case. The issue in the case under self-defense is as follows. Did a person have reason to believe that he was being faced with deadly force? Was his position reasonable in believing that he's dealing with deadly force? And whether the force that is being used is proportional to what you're being confronted with. For instance, if someone's coming to fight you and they have their fist up, you can't take out a gun and shoot them. It's disproportional force. So you can't bring a bazooka to a knife fight. Once the gentleman, the first victim, pointed his gun, he's justified in using deadly physical force against him. As a prosecutor, and I'll put my prosecutor hat on, I think what should have been argued was, yes, he was justified in using deadly physical force against a person with a gun. But after that, there was no other person with weapons that could have caused your death. Therefore, you should not have used deadly physical force against the other individual. What they tried to do is say that Rittenhouse was running away, which the video, because most of the facts are all on video. It wasn't like they could make it up. They saw Rittenhouse was running away, and that the people were chasing after him because they didn't want him to kill anyone else. But it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I don't know too many people that chase people that just shot somebody, unless they're police officers. So there was prosecution's case. Go right ahead.
So let me ask you this. Had this case been in a different state, is the issue, I mean, there's definitely some injustice that's taking place here, whether it is the jury, we want to talk about the judge. Had it been in a different state where the self-defense is defined differently, would the jury have been right to find him guilty?
Pretty much, that self-defense law is pretty standard in just about all the jurisdictions.
Wow.
That is not. I mean, it's pretty much embedded in our criminal justice system. A person can use deadly physical force when they're faced with deadly physical force, and so I mean, I see the injustice or the anger that comes within is because we've seen situations where people of color have not received the benefit from the media, or from having competent counsel. Mm-hmm. And so there is where I know where you say, well, because if he was black, he would have been treated differently. I will say this: I have represented a number of African American brothers and sisters who have used the defense of self-defense and have been acquitted. Found not guilty, caused the death of someone else, but they were faced with deadly physical force themselves.
But how much of this case?
It's not unusual.
Chris, I know you want to jump in. I saw you getting ready to ask a question.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just listening to you explain that you can, render deadly force when you are, when somebody else is using deadly force against you. And of course, I don't want to jump to the Ahmaud Arbery case. That's going to be really interesting to see what the verdict is there, because here you have an innocent individual that doesn't have any weapons. He's running away from the people that have the weapon, and they're running to him. So I'm telling you, we better have a different verdict in that case.
Based on this conversation.
Just so you understand, you got to understand how they're trying to couch it. Now, what the defense in that case is trying to say, and this
we're
is
going to one more break. We're going to one more break. So we
Go ahead.
definitely want to go to Ahmaud Arbery as soon as we come back from the break so we can maximize this time. I'm telling you, the chat is hot. It's hot. Antonio's talking about $2 million will make a difference in this country. Leela says the mother should have been charged. And Sharon is just straight up saying, we have got to change this justice system. We'll be right back. We will be right back. Thanks for listening in. are back. We are back. We are back. We want to go straight to that Ahmaud Arbery case. And then, Attorney Paul, I definitely want you to hit on the jury. Like, what difference does it make when we cannot seemingly get justice and enough African Americans on a jury that's supposed to be a jury of your peers? And then we're going to go to our callers. But can you pick up what you were addressing, Lady Crisette's issue in the Ahmaud Arbery case?
It's interesting in that the Arbery defendants are using an archaic law, a law that was used by slave owners in order to maintain their propriety rights over slaves. That if they saw someone committing a crime or had reason to believe that they were committing a crime, they could individually, although they weren't law enforcement officials, they could place them under arrest. And so they're using this archaic law to say that they were instituting a citizen arrest on Mr. Arbery. But here's the issue they have. This is the problem they have. Arbery wasn't doing anything criminal. The defendant took the stand as on a self-defense case. The defendant must take the stand for all intents and purposes. And he said over and over again, he never saw Arbery do anything other than run. So he can't even avail himself to that particular law. And he clearly wasn't defending himself from any criminal activity for the mere fact that Arbery had no weapon and didn't take his weapon. So I don't see how he's going to be able to use a self-defense claim or this law under the current state.
Wow. Okay. So much to talk about. We're going to go to a caller. We're going to go to Gordon and then Mary. Hang tight. Gordon, are you there? Thanks for calling in to We Got Issues.
Yes. Great show, ladies. Just wanted to comment on what Attorney Martin said about the prosecutors. I have over 30 years in the criminal justice system also, and I agree fully with them that they did not put their brightest couple of prosecutors on that case as they did with the OJ. You know, they got Chris Martin and Marcia Clark, who were their top stars in that area, but they did not do that in this case.
Wow. I thank you for giving that perspective. I thank you for giving that perspective.
And we can see that in action. So thanks for calling in, Gordon. We appreciate what you lend to the show. And Mary, we're going to go to you. Mary, thanks for calling in to We Got Issues.
Are you there, Mary?
Yes, I am. Okay, so to the attorney, I would like to know, how is it that they're allowed on the Arbery trial, the people who murdered him to say it was self-defense when the law says that you have to bring the same force. If someone slaps you, you have to slap them back. You can't choke them. So why would they allow them to say this was self-defense if there's a vehicle, they're chasing them down with a vehicle, and then there is the gun? So here you have this person who's like helpless, and then you have these devices that clearly he cannot defend himself against. So how is it that it becomes a self-defense argument? I'll hang up a little bit.
Yes, so a defendant can use whatever defense or say whatever he wants as it relates to his own defense. At the end of the case, the prosecution can ask that the court not advise a jury as this to defense if there is no legal basis for it. And that's a legal decision the judge has to make. But more than likely, the judge will allow a jury to decide whether self-defense was legally raised and whether the prosecution has disproved it beyond a reasonable doubt. They'll say it's a question for the jury.
Came up on the chat, and Attorney Martin, you can address it. When my husband came home today, he was just like so shocked that so much that had been said in the media has been misinformation. I personally, and you know, it just goes to
That's
tell
a good point.
you
That's good.
yeah, you got to really, really be careful that you're not spreading things off of emotions, because I know I was saying, what kind of mother would take her son across county lines and drive him there with a gun, only to find out today that he was already there at his father's house, that he didn't purchase that weapon. Someone else purchased it for him. And so I guess my thing is, in the chat, so many people are going off of misinformation and they're getting more angry because of what they thought was facts. Now we're finding out it was never the facts. Can you just kind of talk about that?
I have tried a number of nationally publicized criminal cases, and it shocks me sometimes when I get the newspaper the next day and I read what the paper says happened in the courtroom, and I said, were they in the same room as me? Those weren't the facts at all. And so it's important for us.
They just print whatever they want to print.
They whatever addresses their political
agenda
or agenda, whatever that may be, that's what they will print. So we have to be careful about what we believe and investigate the facts for ourselves.
Well, one of the things that I know gets me in an uproar is I firmly feel like what we saw, you cannot deny what we saw on video, that if that had been a Black man with that kind of a rifle walking toward the police, there would not have needed to be a trial, because he may not have been alive. And so I know there's just so many things that come up, but can you talk, before you have to go, can you talk about the jury in so many of these cases? It's just, what is going on? It seems like it's so easy to strike Black folks off a jury. You cannot say you can't find Black jurors. And so can you just talk about that?
Well, I think it's important for us as U.S. citizens to participate in the jury process. And so often we don't either want to go you get that jury notes, I don't want to go, or I ain't got time for that, or I got to worry about being employed. But unless we have people on the jury that look like us and have the similar experiences as us, they will, they can understand what we're going through. And so it's important that we have diverse juries. An attorney in a trial can knock off anyone they want, as long as it's not for race, creed, color, or religion, or I think sexual preference. Now you can't do it. And in a city like Kenosha, Wisconsin, the population I think is about 30% African American, but they only had one Black juror on that jury, right? Mm-hmm. And so why is that? I find the reason, and I get frustrated as a trial attorney, our people are brutally honest. They'll get in there and say, the first question may be asked, do you believe law enforcement officials? And we say, absolutely not. Hold on. You mean you don't believe things that may not sound, right to you? No, I don't believe anything they say. That's deep. Or then you out. And so we have to be careful about what we say and think about what we say. Can we listen and still be fair? I think Black people or people of color are some of the fairest people on this whole world. But unless we're in the jury room, we never get a chance to exercise those rights. So it's important for us to be careful in what we articulate to these courts as it relates to participating in the jury system.
I know if we can, we will go to our caller if he's still there afterwards, but we have 3 more minutes before break, and I know you need to go, and then we're going to address some of the other issues. But what else to bring more justice, in addition to us being willing to serve on a jury and the things you just said? What else can we do to bring more justice in the justice system so that we see an equal, so that justice is literally blind?
Participate in voting for your district attorney. Tell your district attorney you want more people of color serving as assistant district attorneys who evaluate these cases, who come from the same neighborhoods as you and have the same experiences as you. Elect your judges. Most judges are elected. Elect people of color from the same neighborhood so they can decide the same decisions and look into this whole situation. Encourage our people to, there's nothing wrong with being law enforcement officials. Have more people of color working out as a police department. I think Mr. Moore, 30 years he's been on the police department. And because of his experiences, he lends a certain attitude and disposition that we won't get from people who don't know us or look like us, who come from different places than us.
Mm-hmm. This is so good. This is so good. Gloria, I'm going to go to you before the break. And then we just appreciate you, Attorney Paul, for lending your voice and just really breaking it down. The law is the law, but we can change the law if we see that it's not serving us rightly. So, Gloria.
My question goes back to, what we're going to continue to go forward with. The fact that, Attorney Martin, that you were able to tell us some viewpoint that we never know. Not only getting more Blacks on the jury, but more Black attorneys and prosecutors and defenders. I mean, it's just this long story of what's going on and trying to encourage more people to go into that profession in the season that we're in right now. I just want to know, is it harder now than it was 15 years ago to be in those positions because of the culture of the country right now?
I don't think so. I think they're calling out for people of color to get into these places and to these positions. We just have to step up and be willing to serve in public office and to serve as judges and serve as district attorneys. It was one of the greatest experiences I ever had. And I was able to really affect the community that I was in. But we need more people to do that. More people of color.
Do you feel that the job that those are in those positions now, do you feel the jobs of the prosecutors or the defending attorneys is harder now than it was 10 to 15 years ago because of the culture of the country right now?
I think the culture of the country is so divisive right now. It makes every aspect of life a little differently. I mean, I'm even talking about like going to the supermarket. You got to look to the right, can't bump anybody, don't know what's going to happen, don't know what they're carrying, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
Attorney Paul,
we are resilient people.
We're going to another break, and I know you have to go. We are in need of revival. When I tell you we're in need of revival, thank you for the work that you're doing. We are so glad to see a man that looks like you from an HBCU that is doing the work in the criminal defense system as well as the kingdom. So thanks so much. Stay tuned.
We will be right back. Thank you all. Whenever you need me. Whenever you need me. Thank you so much.
Trust me. Trust me. You're in the tribe. All right. Thank you. Stay tuned, y'all. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. We are back. This has been a hot topic for sure because we got issues. We're going to the chat. We're going to talk about the chat. I wanted to just say this. I didn't want to break in during his time, but talking about the blacks and the jury. In 2004, Texas District and County Attorney Association trials, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They can't use race to eliminate people, but they can ask things like they can eliminate people because they watch gospel TV shows or because they favored the O.J. Simpson trial. Right here in 2016 in Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley, probably what is considered to be one of the most liberal places, there was a 30-page list of 77 justifications they could use to strike people off a jury. They can use in Santa Clara County, California, okay, where Facebook and Apple come from. They can use your clothing, your hairstyle, or other accoutrements to say that you are not fit to serve on the jury. And even someone said that they wanted to remove a black juror because of low intelligence or alleged lack of education. A quote, too stupid to live, much less be on a jury. So I'm telling you, it is the jury selection is so... I have to say, I'm one of the people self-employed who was like, how would I serve on a jury for 3 weeks, a month? But we have got to make a different decision. So we're going to go to Grace, and then I'm going to come back to the girlfriends to talk about some of the things that are in the chat. Grace, thanks for staying tuned to We Got Issues. We want to hear what you have to comment on.
I truly thank you, ladies. I didn't have a question for the attorney, but I'm going to say this. If we cannot produce students that are graduating from high school that are reading on a 12th grade level or higher, and they're graduating and we've got a 4th grade level and a 7th grade level, and graduating, how are we going to produce lawyers? Okay, so we need to get the system of the high school correct. Or even elementary. We need to get that right. It is sad that we're not producing more attorneys. But you understand also, too, that debt, and if they're not getting scholarships, no parent really wants their child to go through that. So let's say the NAACP, let's say prominent attorneys already that are making millions and have it in the bank, why don't we set up scholarships that are significant to actually get these individuals through school, the ones that don't graduate, and graduating with honors or at least a very good comprehension of knowing or in reading. We need to do better. We're failing our students. I hear all of this, and it sounds great, but we have to get it right on our local level of our children graduating, knowing, and not necessarily Michigan ready, world ready. We're failing them. And the school system is absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. My child has graduated through BPSCD, and it's sad to know that his other classmates, the level, that it is absolutely sad. Absolutely sad. I was there. I know it. And it's sad. It is absolutely sad. We're failing our young people. So we need to have something, to help them pay for their debt. Being a lawyer is a good $240,000 going through, at least. But we need to have something to help them pay for that debt. In the trial, you know what? I just can't be really, really disappointed because it was carved in and paved before. It's right in the middle. We literally knew. But it's sad that the white system allowed some of their people to be killed and not have somebody accountable for the killings. It is absolutely sad. But they will sacrifice and keep their young. So those others, the ones that died, they were sacrificed. They were literally sacrificed because they know they were wrong. When you're dealing with the laws and the system, and I'm going to say this, laws are legally allowing white supremacy. But when they come out of their mouth and they talk about laws, legally allowing white supremacy, that system, they created that for us. It is truly their system. And it worked just the way they wanted to work for trial. It did. And you know what? And I'm going to say this. His mother and his father should be really, really disappointed in his actions. The cousins should not have kids together. I will say that. And I thank you, ladies. Have a great evening.
Great. Thank you for calling in. I do
Kay
appreciate
King said, and that was one of the things I was going to say, we know the education system needs to be overhauled, and yet there is so much money that is available that is not tapped into. There's a lot of money. If somebody really wants to go through law school, there are ways of making that happen. And so I just want to encourage anyone who's listening in that is your goal, to make that happen. Girlfriends, let's just look at, I don't think we have any other callers right now. So the chat is hot. Gloria.
You know what? I wanted to add, when she was talking about the education system, I think, and then he was talking about how we cannot get people of color or Black people on the jurors, and that how, it's just like what she did say is that she just pointed out another place where things are stacked against us. Another place where they're stacked against us. Another place where we're stacked against us. So when people are like, it's right, it's wrong, it's right, it's wrong, it's just glaring to us that if it had been of another race, if it had been a Black man sitting in his chair, it's just glaring to us that it would not have been the same situation with the exact same laws and with the exact same people.
Right. And you know what? That's the problem. I think that we would be more accepting of verdicts if in the past, when the persecutors or the victims were people of color, they got the same justice. And I think that's where that's where the problem comes in. And then the other part that I will say, because I know I was absolutely livid, I was hot, all of it when the verdict came. But the other side of it is we are not privy to what the jurors are given when they say, these are the things you can consider. Because I know in the chat, somebody was saying, it's common sense. It's common sense. And I know I can be hot-headed and say they should have come back with a guilty verdict. But if you are given a parameter which end to work with, and you come outside of that parameter, the judge can nullify and say, no, you guys are not basing it on these particular rules and parameter. So I think part of it is we don't know that as outsiders and spectators. So, we can be upset, but I just think we don't have all the information. At least I'll say I didn't have all the information.
Right.
I mean, this is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Chris, when you talked about the Ahmaud Arbery case, because Attorney Paul did a great job kind of breaking down what the law is: right, wrong, and different. We are in position to change laws and to shift and so forth.
Right.
But when it works for both sides, let's see what happens with these other cases. That is where the problem is. Justice must be blind. It cannot be different for your child than it is for their child. It has to be justice, or it's not fair. And so thank you so much. This is let's just pray for safety in these cities, in these areas, for young people, that as a result of this verdict, we will not be here next week as a result of what takes place this weekend and ongoing, that we will use our time and our talent and our voice and our outrage to make a difference in the system and not be more killing. And so I just appreciate you guys for tuning in today. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jalen. It is Friday and we kind of need a break for the weekend, but we will be right back here on Monday because we got issues. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye, everybody.